Welcome back to Geeks Not Nerds. Once again, I am Captain Logan.
And I am Eric.
Eric, today's topic came from you, sir. This is a thing that you've been wanting to talk about for a real long time. I'm going to let you kind of run point on
That's
this.
Good, because I don't
today, Eric, I'll just give you a second. We'll see if Eric.
We came up with this last night. I don't even.
So last night, you came to me and you were like, "Now I know, Cap. You said."
Oh, that's right.
No,
yes, I know exactly what it is. I know exactly what it is. Yep.
What are we talking about today, Eric?
We're talking about copyright laws.
We sure are.
We are talking about copyright laws, which is really funny because earlier, like before we started doing the
intellectual
show,
property.
I was thinking about. I was like. It's like, oh yeah, we're talking about doing that for something. Maybe it was After Dark. Maybe that'll be an After Dark topic. I totally forgot that we were in fact doing this.
So we wanted to talk about like copyright laws, intellectual property laws, and not that we're experts and know everything about that stuff. That makes it sound like we're gonna have a legal conversation.
No.
What we really want to talk about, really the question for today is when and how long, like should and when. Should things go in the public domain? Is kind of the question today.
I think because I was thinking about this earlier.
Yeah.
This is kind of building on stuff that we said not on camera, so this is going to be.
It's going to be weird. It's one of those things where we had a really nice discussion last night, and I was like, "Why don't we just turn on the camera right now?" That's what we should have done. I'm sure it won't be. Sorry, folks, but whatever you hear us say right now won't be nearly as interesting as what happened yesterday.
So I guess the first thing you have to talk about when you talk about intellectual property is Disney and how they've ruined it.
I think that's fair, yeah.
No debate, no question, they have ruined it. Every time, so originally it was 50 years after, I believe, the creator's death, their intellectual property went into public domain. That's why anyone can write Dracula or Sherlock Holmes or things of that ilk. Anyone can use Frankenstein. It's because we've gone past that.
Whoever the creator was, whoever owned the rights.
Yeah. Lovecraft's like that too, and that's interesting because most of his compatriots do not have that. Maybe he just has worse legal representation. But like you can use Cthulhu, but you can't use Conan.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Part of that might be because he was
which is one of the things that makes it feel like he was earlier than he was sometimes.
Yeah. But so originally, I believe it was 50 years. Every time we come up to the deadline, Disney shows up with their pocketbook and pays off everyone and says, "Hey, what if it was a little bit longer?"
Yeah.
Because they don't want to lose Mickey Mouse, they don't want to lose any of their key franchises or IPs, their characters. I think it's 70 now, and we're coming up on a deadline, and so I'm sure Disney will push that back even further. Basically, Disney should no longer own a lot of the things they own, and they don't want that. And then you get into things with comic books.
They're so popular, or excuse me, they're so powerful that they're able to have too much influence on the rules.
Yeah. And then you get into things like comic books. I think it's absurd at this point that Batman's not in the public domain.
Yeah.
Superman, pretty much anyone from the Golden Age. They should all be in public domain at this point. I think the copyright laws, need to be completely readdressed because they were made without... The idea of a corporately owned creation did not exist when we made copyright laws.
Right.
The idea that DC Comics would create Batman, Superman, and Marvel Comics would create...
and that they would have a stable of creators that would make things that they don't own, that are owned by that entity almost as if it created those things, but it didn't. There was a creator or co-creators, but they don't get to keep those things, and they don't have any say on whether or not it ever goes into the public domain.
I also think a major problem is families. People who either maintain control of an IP, or, I mean, you also have the thing with, like, the Kirby family and the Siegel and Schuster families, like, saying, like, well, our family created that, we should at the very least get a cut, but we should have control over this character, because our parents or grandparents made this thing.
Yeah.
I think
and we pass property down.
Yeah, I kind of think
that's what we do in our
that's
society.
Absurd.
Okay, so let's
there's two discussions.
Well, hold on. I don't want to go there yet. Let's draw back a little bit before we get there. That seems like a second or third tier of this conversation.
Sure. Well, I'm just spinning my wheels because it was just me.
Before we get to all of that, let's first discuss why we like the idea of public domain in the first place. Why does this matter to us?
Well, it's because once something permeates culture to a point, it should be usable. It's the who's the artist in the '60s? The one who did like the soup can.
Yeah.
I can't think of what his name is.
I always have a hard time thinking.
But his whole Andy Warhol.
Thank you.
Andy Warhol's.
Yeah, there you go.
Andy Warhol's whole thing is these are things that are part of our.
I talked about him a lot. I can never think of his name for some reason. Sorry, go ahead.
These are things that are part of our lives.
Yeah.
Everyday lives. Everyone should be able to use these.
Yeah, a Coke can is in your purview as much as trees and tables and tires.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason that you shouldn't be able to make it part of a painting or put it in a novel or put it in a film.
Yeah, I also think that it's so like. First of all, it's just constantly
regardless
there.
of whether or not you think that Andy Warhol's paintings of just a soup can count as art. You know what I mean? Like, that is a debate people have.
No.
The whole pop art.
Andy Warhol falls into that thing where, like, it's not really what the painting is, it's about the meaning behind the painting. I tend to lean on Andy Warhol's side in that whole debate.
Well, and I think some of that, too, is just trying to perpetuate his feelings about that.
Mm-hmm.
His philosophy. He says, I should be able to do this, and so I do.
Yeah.
It's kind of that Andy Kaufman thing, where it's like, I should be able to do this.
Yeah. So it becomes a thing where it's so part of our conscious and our subconscious and just our very existence. We should have access to this. It's not fair creatively that something like Batman is not accessible to everyone, and it's. I think in some ways it stops things from being built on.
That's the main thing that I want to bring up. Yeah.
I'll talk about Sherlock Holmes and Dracula. We're like Sherlock Holmes and Dracula. I think being in the public domain has done an amazing thing. Where, like, if you want to write a Sherlock Holmes story, you can go do that, and you can get that out of your system. And then maybe what you've learned writing that, you can then go write something inspired by Sherlock Holmes. That is not Sherlock Holmes. You can do your own thing.
It would be nice if eventually we could do this with Star Trek.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Star Wars, and just some of these big giant properties that a lot of people are huge fans of, and they understand the ins and outs of that world. I've heard a lot of science fiction writers say that if you want to get really good at writing science fiction, start with a Star Trek story, because you know that world already. You get the world buildings done for you, and then you can work on characterization and structure and that kind of stuff. And then, like, you can't publish it, but write one. And then after that, that's a nice kind of training wheels exercise. And then you can start creating your own worlds after that. What if we could do that, and it's actually okay to profit from it when, like you said, that creator hasn't been around for a long time, and it's just part of the zeitgeist.
Well, and on the other side, you have the like, I don't want to say the word masters, but like the seasoned people who do come in and do, like, I'm going to do something with Dracula, I'm going to do something with Sherlock Holmes, I'm going to do something with Lovecraft, or if you're Neil Gaiman, like, I'm going to do something with Sherlock Holmes and Lovecraft, and like all of this stuff, and like...
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, like people who really have a take or have something new and different to say, you will never get that specifically with like the DC characters, because they're so iconic. You get a lot of pastiches. Joe Casey's Sex is very much a book about Batman.
Sure.
But it can't be about Batman. And boy, wouldn't it be more interesting if it was about Batman?
Yeah.
But he's not allowed. And I think that's absurd. I think it's ridiculous. I'm not saying that the second someone creates something, it should be there. Batman has been there so long, and comics specifically are weird, because the question of who created what becomes a big thing. Who created Venom? Like, that's a huge question because of all of these different elements from different people.
It seems like we did maybe a whole show on even that phenomenon at one point. The thing is, intellectual property laws are there to protect the people who actually made the thing from not being ripped off and not being able to profit on their own things or having it stolen from them. I believe in property rights I understand why we have that in this country. And I'm not against corporations who work above board and work within the rules. So the fact that a corporation owns a thing that they didn't, that like the person who originally created it isn't necessarily with them, but they own it, those rights should be still protected, but only for so long, I think. Like, I do completely agree with you on that, just because like, it's a real sticky situation where it would be nice if, you know, all things being equal, if we didn't have to worry about people being ripped off and their stuff being stolen from them and not being able to profit from it, if everything someone creates, everyone has access to without hurting anyone else, because that is how art builds on itself. That, like, everything, we talk about this all the time, that obviously everything is influenced by something else, and you need to be able to take something that existed already and allow that to evolve and morph into the other things it's naturally going to evolve and morph into. What gets really complicated is with the somewhat strict copyright laws that we have in this country, is telling the difference between ripping somebody off and just building on it, and it's the lines are so blurred that it's really easy to get sued for doing the thing that is just natural in how art is made.
Well, and it's also copyright laws are different in different countries.
Yeah.
So it gets weird.
Japan, it's a lot stricter.
Yeah,
I've heard.
And China, it's a lot more. It's a lot looser.
I've heard that in Japan. I don't know if this is true, because I've not been there and I haven't looked into it. But apparently, if you, I don't remember who I heard this from. Apparently, you can't like name things that are licensed in anything.
That I'm not sure if that they must have parody laws, because I've seen it referenced in like other things, jokingly.
Yeah.
But they also have a big thing that we don't have. Japan has a whole genre of manga called doujinshi, which are unlicensed things that people sell. There is a whole industry of fan comics, and a lot of people start in those, and a lot of people get picked up. There's certain people who like did like a bunch of Dragon Ball fan comics, and now we're officially working on certain Dragon Ball properties and things like that. So I'm not sure how strict. I think it might be company by company. I don't know if it's...
I heard that, but I wasn't sure I bought it. Like, there's parody laws, but then okay, so in this country, you can't copyright titles, and I don't know if you can there, but you can't do that here, and you can name anything, but you can't you can't use. Obviously, as we're talking about, you can't use Batman in something, but you can talk about someone reading a Batman comic, and then you get into slander and libel issues, where you can bring up, say Burger King, but if you start, making Burger King like the corporate villain of your story, that could get murky.
There's a Judge Dredd comic that was never republished for like 4 decades, where Judge Dredd goes out in the post-apocalypse, and there is what is referred to as the Burger Wars, and there is a Ronald McDonald and the Burger King, and they're like Mad Max like clans.
I didn't know that.
And they war with each other, and it wasn't republished until I think a couple of years ago. It was.
There were parodies of those characters. It was.
I believe it was just straight up those characters.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think you should be able to do that. I absolutely think you should be able to do that. I think it's ridiculous that you can't. But I think there's also, when it comes to creativity and creation, I have a real big question of like, yeah, but who made you be the one that gets to decide? I had this a lot with families, where it's like, so your great-grandfather made something. What insight do you have into this thing that I do not?
Yeah, and that's where I'm going to disagree with you a little bit.
Okay.
That doesn't matter.
Okay.
That's not how property works. So, if the law is property is decided, like who owns it is decided by the person who made it, then it doesn't matter if those people are creative or if they have any ideas for it. It doesn't matter what you want, Eric. That's not how ownership works. And so you have to think about a licensed property as being more tangible than it is because of how the law works. And I don't see, like, you can disagree with the law in this particular instance, but I have a difficult time with that because I don't know what the difference is between your dad opened his own steakhouse and passed it down to you, and your dad created Batman and passed it down. I don't know what the difference is.
Okay, well, I mean...
There is no difference.
I mean, there is a difference in that I have never heard of anyone having a character passed down to them. Well, that's not true. There are cases of characters being passed down, but for the most part, it's just they died, and then someone takes over, and a lot of times they don't seem to...
But that's how passing down works. It's inheritance.
Yeah, but a lot of times with, like, restaurants, things like that, they're literally, like, I'm giving the store to you kind of a thing.
Right. The same thing happens with intellectual property. It's just that you don't hear about it because those people aren't the ones who are actually writing it. You see what I'm saying? Like, they'll decide... No, it's the exact same thing. A lot of restaurants will get passed down, and those people will own it, but hire someone else to run it. The exact same thing is going on with the family thing. It's with intellectual property. It's more complicated when that property is also owned by a big corporation and the family has to be involved because it's almost like co-owners. You know what I mean? It's almost like having stock in a company or something. I
don't think they should be able to dictate the direction of something. Like I almost feel like I don't think you should have to pay them to make something, but they should get profits from it. Like, if that makes sense. I
think it would be nice to have more of a sense more often of what the person that passed it down really wanted for it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But I don't know that I fully agree with that. Because I just for you and I as consumers look at that differently because we want everything to be about good storytelling and quality of storytelling. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about a different issue. Mm. You see what I'm saying?
Well, but then nothing would enter the public domain. It would just pass down families the way a restaurant does. Restaurants never enter the public domain. It has to be a different thing.
Well, but see, I don't understand how exactly, and this is where we get into a thing that I just don't know enough about. Mm. This is part of why I didn't want to talk about this in the first place. Like, this was your idea. I think initially when I was like, I don't know if I want to talk about that, I think it was because I don't know if I know enough to talk about this. So I clearly don't. So and I'm sure we'll get some comments from people.
Yeah, not even speaking legally. We're just talking I'm sure like aerial view kind of a thing.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be people that understand this topic better than we do that will set us straight on some things. I had a lot of that back when I was talking about Axonar, because I just don't know enough about intellectual property rules and code and stuff. But what were we talking about?
I was talking about how a restaurant never enters the public domain, but a character does.
The Simon & Schuster thing, I don't really know why the family is still able to. I think it's just because DC has maybe figured out how to keep that going past when it was supposed to go, and so then there's still a legal issue of. I'm assuming, like, is that what it is, or is it something? Sure. I don't know. I don't know why that's even an issue.
I don't know. Well, but it's the same thing with the Kirby family.
But you do make a good point. I'm contradicting myself. If we are making an argument for public domain, we're saying that there should be some kind of a statute of limitations where even the family wouldn't have ownership over it anymore. And so in that sense, it is different than just passing down an object that you own. Mm-hmm. I can see both sides of that. Like,
mm-hmm. Well, and that gets sticky when it comes to corporations. Corporations never die.
See, what I think there's a way to sort of do both things. I like the idea of allowing the idea, the basic, this is what Batman is, and then maybe the characters associated with it, this is what they are, let that go into the public domain, but there is a continuity that continues to go on from DC that you can't mess with. You know what I mean? Like, I think you can have both things.
Everyone
potentially
has to reboot
at the same time. Yeah,
but that's not how anything else works. Like you can reboot Sherlock Holmes, or you can do a sequel to a Sherlock Holmes story. Like,
right, but it wouldn't. Right, you could do that too, but it wouldn't be considered canon. What I'm saying is, just simply whatever you do is not official.
Sure.
We just need to have I think we could solve a lot of problems if we just had a separation of this is official, this is not official.
Well, and I also think that you're in this place now where we've done this for so long. if this ever changed over...
You got me not even sure what I think about this anymore as far as the family ownership thing goes. Because I do like the idea of public domain. I think... Because who are we protecting after a fashion?
Yeah, no, I agree. Because I don't think the family should have control. I just don't. Because...
Man, I can see both sides
because
of that.
it's such an ethereal thing. It's... And oftentimes it seems like
but
they
should
don't...
they for that first 50 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe we could at least agree on that. We can compromise on that.
No, absolutely.
Okay, but then why? Why them and why not someone else?
Well, I mean, in a perfect world, like, I guess not, because all I can think of is everything that families have ruined.
Yeah, but again, we can't make it about quality.
I know.
That's not what this is about.
But yeah, I mean, I guess them, because it is property ownership, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this is a fairness and a moral question, right?
Honestly,
that doesn't have anything to do with whether or not good stories are going to come from those people.
I think some of this should be more open, and you as a creator should there should be a legal thing where, like, you decide before you die.
Yeah.
I want my kids to own this,
or
I want this to go in the public domain.
Yeah, and you do kind of have to do that with other things people own.
Mm-hmm. And I think more people should. And
I don't just mean with things people create. I mean like anything you have, if it's not in the will, it gets sold off.
Mm-hmm. Dave Sim, creator of Cerberus, which. Really, unfortunately, that guy kind of seemed to...
Or goes to your spouse or whatever, but, like, yeah.
Sorry, that guy seems to go off the rails at some point, kind of become a crazy person. But and maybe always was. But, like, I like his ideas about copyright laws, and he has said many times, when he dies, everything he's made will go into the public domain. Unfortunately, I'm not sure anyone want to touch that stuff now, after what he's done. But I wish that was more... Like, and it's the way he makes it sound.
I'd like to know what McFarlane wants to do with Spawn. And like after he passes away, what does he want to happen to that character?
But the way Dave Sims, the way it sounds when Dave Sims talks about it, makes it seem like he had to, like, jump through hoops to do that, to set it up so that his things go in the public domain when he dies. I think it should be I think legally it should be.
Well, if you own something, you should be able to do whatever you want to.
I agree. But I think that should be more of a. We shouldn't just assume.
Yeah. I think so too.
Because creations come from creators, and creators should be able to control what happens to that. If somebody says, like, when I die, you know, maybe like property stuff, like you could be like, yeah, this doesn't go to my family. This goes to Disney gets this when they die. Or I've been in communication with this one person, and they really seem to get what I'm about, and so it's going to go to a fan, or you know or it's going to go in public domain. You know?
Yeah.
I think the creator should have much more control than just what we have, which is a default.
So my final thoughts. I'm conflicted because we're out of time. I'm conflicted about. Now, very conflicted about the. You make a very persuasive argument. In that what I'm saying doesn't match what we started with. But so I'm very conflicted about the family ownership question and all of that. But my main thing still is. Intellectual property laws are important. We do need to protect people in the short term.
Yeah,
and
in your lifespan.
And those rules... Yeah, and I also understand, to some degree, protecting companies that own things that are that are playing by the rules and doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. What I don't, of course, want, which happens... is a lot, is having intellectual property rules that are working more for companies than they are for the people who created them, mm-hmm. and that makes it easy for companies to screw people and to come up with loopholes so that they can make money simply for having a thing and not even really doing anything with it. That's the big, huge problem with it for me. So it needs to be less strict than it is in one sense, and almost more strict in another sense.
Well, and I think on some level, quality control should play into some of this. Just in, so like you have the Fox thing with Fantastic Four, right? Where like it's like you just have to make something to keep these rights. That should never be an option. You shouldn't be able to make the Roger Corman Fantastic Four just to keep the... That shouldn't be possible.
Well, that's not even an issue of quality control, because this is very simple. If the rule was just you have to release it, then they would make something better, because then it would bomb at the box office.
And it might hurt the brand.
Look, you have to have regulations with food to make sure that people don't get sick, but it's too arbitrary and it's too arbitrary when it comes to the quality of something that you're consuming for entertainment to decide what counts as good and what counts as bad. You can't make that. You can't legalize it. You gotta make that part of the law.
That's true. Well, and the Roger Corman Fantastic Four might be the best Fantastic Four film.
It's weird. It's not. It's technically the 04 or the 0405 is the best of those. It has no story, but but yeah, I'm just saying that it is too subjective, right?
Yeah, no, it is.
It's not the same thing as like what you can't have meat that's going to produce salmonella. It's not the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I'm very in the camp of things should go into the public domain, and yeah, I don't know. I don't even think it's a bad idea that things go into the public domain once a person passes or very quickly after a person passes. I don't even know if it needs to be 50 years. That's all for like families and companies. Like I don't know. Like I'm very much about the creator, and I think you should decide. If you're a novelist and you're a published novelist, I think it should just be standard routine procedure in the same way you update a will, that you decide what you want to happen to your properties.
Yeah, why isn't that part of a will?
Yeah,
sure. So we agree on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Aaron, do you have any rants today?
I do. I actually have three potential rants.
About? Well, why don't you pick one?
I am going to pick one.
Okay, sure.
Because it's going to tie into a thing that we're going to talk about later.
Oh, exciting.
And I'd completely forgotten about
Ready Player One.
I went to write... No.
Okay.
I went to write down how much easier would Ready Player One be if things went in the public domain.
Right, yeah, sure. It is really weird that there's nothing Disney in that movie. You know, that feels like, and I get it. They just didn't want to play ball, but just in the world of that movie, it feels like Disney never happened.
Yeah,
and it's just really strange because they have stuff from so many other, companies and licenses.
No, and it's funny because I'd forgotten about this, and I was going to do a different rant, and I went into I had one thing written down for rants in my phone from like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess I'll do that because it ties into a thing we're talking about later. So my rant is... Detective is not a genre. Noir is a genre. Mystery is a genre. Detective is not a genre. You cannot just have a protagonist be a detective and say this is a detective thing.
Okay, now let me stop you for a second. You used to rant and complain that noir is not a genre, that it's a style.
Noir is also not a genre.
You just said it is.
You're right. I guess what I mean by noir...
You just said noir is a genre.
You're right. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, noir, sorry, go ahead.
Noir isn't a genre. It is a look. It is a feel. I guess it's a genre in that, like, there are certain traits associated with it.
Yeah.
But it is more a look that is a... But detective is not a genre, and, like, if you do something noir, like I've always had this joke that, like, if you're doing something noir... Especially like neo-noir, like you're doing it now. Not, obviously, the actual foundational noir films, most of those end up not being detective movies. But if you do anything now, I've always had this joke where I'm like, it doesn't matter what your protagonist's job is, he is a detective. In Big O, he is a negotiator. He spends most of his time going around detecting things.
So detective isn't a genre. What genre does it fall into?
Well, it depends. It can be a mystery, it can be hard-boiled, it can be...
But those are considered subgenres of the detective genre.
Sure, but
so how's it not a genre?
Because I think a lot of people just have a detective protagonist and say it's a detective thing, but it's not a detective thing. And like we'll talk about this with Jessica Jones a little bit, but like this is the thing with a lot of things.
So basically, what you're saying is it's not a genre unless you're actually working in the genre. Like it is a genre,
I guess.
Right?
I guess. I mean, I guess
like you. I think what you're really complaining about is things that want to have that style but don't actually have a detective doing any detectiving.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're complaining about.
Yeah.
Like it is a genre. Like what else is Sherlock Holmes if it's not a detective piece? I don't understand how that's not a genre.
Wait. So I remember what I wrote down. It's not genre. I've been using the wrong word this entire time.
Okay.
Tone.
Yeah.
Detective is not a tone.
Okay, you just said the opposite of what you're trying to say.
I understand that. I was trying to... I should have checked my phone to actually see what I wrote.
Which
Detective is not a tone.
How
everything.
you started with noir is a genre.
Yes, I've been using the wrong word. I wrote down tone. Yes.
Yeah.
Detective is not a tone.
Detective is not a style. It is a genre.
Yeah, and I feel like we're using it like a style. Yeah, like a tone. It's a detective show.
Yeah, okay, there we go. We're all caught up now.
Yep, sorry, I've been using the wrong word the whole time. That's what I mean.
That's right.
Cut this. Strike it.
No,
reverse it.
No, not on that.
Detective's not a tone. Detective is not a style.
Yeah.
And I feel like we do a lot of things where we do that.
Yeah,
where we act like, well, it's like a detective thing, but it's not like a detective thing at all.
Yeah, sure.
We just casually kind of know what that looks like.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of it. As someone that enjoys those things, I'm really done with going into things.
No, the tone is intrigue.
Yeah.
Because you can have that without someone that's actually actively looking for clues and trying to solve a mystery. Like those are not mutually exclusive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can have
or thriller.
Yeah, that too. But I mean, like, but you can have a thing that is mysterious, and where there are people, you know, doing bad things in the background, and where we don't know exactly what's going on, without the main character trying to solve a case. Like detective,
and that's what a lot of classic noir films are. Right. It's crime.
It's not only it's crime. It's not only a genre, but it's also a profession.
Mm-hmm.
And you need someone that is, if not professionally detecting, actively doing that as if they were.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I've seen a lot of things. Like I get really excited. I'm like, oh, it's a detective thing, and then I watch it, and I'm like, but it's not really a detective thing.
Yeah.
The main character is a detective. I have this problem. There's a Kamen Rider show that I like quite a bit called Kamen Rider Double. The main character is a detective. His Bible is Raymond Chandler, and sometimes stylistically it's kind of detective-y, and like. But I don't feel like he's working cases any more than anyone else. They just pay lip service. So it's like, well, it's a detective thing. I'm like, but it's not really.
Yeah.
You're just saying he's a detective. He's doing the same things every other Kamen Rider does. He's just helping people.
Why do we do that? Is it because people think that those are difficult to write, where they don't want to make the protagonist look stupid or make things look too convoluted in going and trying to discover things, or is it that they are afraid of just like redoing the formula over and over again?
No, I think the problem is it's permeated pop culture too much. I don't think anyone actually knows. Not anyone. I don't think people know what a detective thing is.
Yeah.
So they just they think they do. Like they're like,
Mystery Orient Express was novel. It's been so long since we've had a thing like that.
Yeah. And that's a fair play mystery. That's not exactly a detective thing, but well, we don't make those things anymore. But I feel like
people, but he's still a detective.
Yes. I think people think they know what that's like, or it's the trench coat and hat thing.
Yeah.
You read most detective novels and they do not wear a trench coat and hat. I don't know where that stereotype comes from. It's not actually a thing. Most of them wear suits.
Yeah.
But children's shows do this. Everything does this where it has the imaginary episode, like a dream episode where everything's shadowy and there's a dude in a trench coat smoking a cigarette. But
that's because of noir. I mean that comes from the 30s.
I think they think it's a tone. I think people think they can make a detective thing without knowing what detective things are like. They're just like, well, I know what that feels like. I know what a detective thing is like. But they don't. It's not actually a detective thing.
You have a lot of shadow, you have a lot of voiceover. You have,
and that's not even all that's not even all inherent in detective.
Sure.
Murder on the Orient Express is a murder mystery. It's not about shadow. That's not inherently. That's a hard-boiled thing. But even then, the Rockford Files aren't shot like that. Rockford Files are real bright and sunny. It's still a pretty hard-boiled detective thing. Also,
Matlock's not shot like that.
I also don't think that most people are aware that most detective stories take place in L.A., or at least in California. Everyone assumes it's New York. I don't know why, but most detective stuff happens in literarily in novels. Most detective stuff happens over on the West Coast.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is I can think of an example where you have the opposite of this. Angel is a detective show. Nobody talks about it like that.
That's true. Well, I think it's because Angel metamorphosizes, and the first season is very much that.
Yeah.
But by the time you get to the end, it's not. I don't think season 5 is a detective show. I think we get away from that.
No, but that's only because but very intentionally. I mean, it's a lawyer show. I mean,
but I'm not sure season 4 is either. Like I feel like it starts there, and then I think every season of Angel is kind of a different genre.
No, that's true. That's fair. Yeah.
But the first season of Angel is a detective thing. Yeah, I'm kind of done getting excited for things.
You made me think of that because you said L.A.
Yeah,
They might have thought of detective because they said in L.A.
Well, and of course most detective things are set in L.A. because so much of them involves Hollywood and all the seediness of film.
Right.
Like, of course it takes, but for some reason we always put it in New York. I think intellectually, like in people's minds, they think it's a New York thing. It's a streets. It's merging crime films with detective things, and no one, not actually knowing the source material and just thinking like, well, yeah, I know what that feels like. So yeah, that's my rant. Is detective is not a tone. It is a genre. It's not a tone. But yes.
I've got a real simple one. This is not juicy or anything, and I'm mostly putting this out there in case anybody knows of a good solution to this problem. So I keep running into this issue where I'll find out about a concert or a local performance way too late to get tickets, where like the tickets have sold out, or I found out about it after the thing actually happened. I can't come up with a good way to keep up with when things are happening with concerts or with plays or any kind of public performance that I care about without having to wade through a million things I don't care about.
It seems like there should be a website where you should be able to put in artists and acts that you're interested in, and it will just ping you when they're coming to your area.
Maybe there is something like that, but I don't know of it. And obviously, we have this with everything else, like social networks and Twitter, and where you'll get you put in a keyword and you get a ping every time there's news about it. I want that every time there is something locally happening that has to do with my interests, because if I want to, for instance, know when like a rock band I like is playing or something, I have to just look up the individual rock band and see if they're actually showing up.
Meanwhile, it's anytime near when you're deciding to look it up.
Yeah. Meanwhile, someone that I didn't think about that I would totally like to go see, I'll never find out about. Mm-hmm. And the reason I thought of this is because there's a symphony that is playing the music from Back to the Future, and I wanted to go to that, but there were like 8 tickets left, and I couldn't get tickets next to each other, and they were like $50 tickets, and if I could get seats next to each other, I might have paid that, but I bet early on there were some cheaper tickets, and I just didn't know about it. So like I want to, and there's too many different genres and styles of music and different kinds of things you want to go
knowing people into things.
I want to know, like, anytime something is related to superheroes or Batman or Star Trek or certain kinds of movies, I would like to somehow know about them.
Well, and knowing people knowing different people that are into things, specifically music and like plays and things like that.
And I live in a big city where a lot of this kind of stuff happens.
It seems like it's like comics. You only know if you're just always plugged in.
That's right.
You know all the shows that are coming. You know all the plays that are coming. Those are the people that know those things. There doesn't seem to be a casual way.
I don't want to have to know all. I don't have time for that.
Yeah, and you're not a music guy who's just going to go to a concert every week.
Right.
I've known people like that, and they knew everything that was coming to town. But you shouldn't have to do that just to know, if Weird Al's coming or the Mountain Ghosts are coming.
I'd like to go to something every couple months. I'm not going to go all the time. So that's my rant.
Sure,
real simple rant, but that's a thing that was on my mind.
You don't want to stop halfway through and realize you've been using the wrong word?
No. No. Oh, I meant movie. I didn't mean concert. How do I know when movies are playing? How do I know that? I can't come up with any way to find out what the movies are.
You can call Movie Phone.
Oh, I should try that.
It's still operational.
Oh, I meant concert. Concert phone. Okay. Anyway, folks, thanks so much for watching. We sure appreciate it. And if you're watching this as its own separate video, thanks a bunch for doing that. We're going to move on now on the Omnibus to our next segment.